Welcome back to Grounded, a Train Up Parents podcast. I'm Charles Draper with Mark Lell, and we're excited to kick off episode 13 this week. This week we're going to talk about making decisions. Life is full of decisions. Every day we make hundreds and probably in thousands of decisions, small ones, big ones, everything in between. But what does this look like for our children? How do we as parents train, coach, work our children through being ready to make decisions once they leave the house, whether that's, and even in the home. So they choose friends, they choose what to watch, they choose what they believe, who to marry, how to handle money. There's all kinds of decisions that are wrapped into life, and how are we working with our kids on decision making? The Bible says, in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So if we're not training them, and it's really the essence of the podcast in general, is Grounded, a Train Up Parents podcast. How are we training our kids? So today, Mark, we're going to jump into what does it look like to make decisions? How do we do that? How do we go about it? And how do we coach our children into it before they get thrown out into the adult world, I guess I would say, or they're outside of our house and outside of our care.
Great conversation, Charles. Been looking forward to it all week. As I've thought about this, I think before we start talking about methods and why it's important to make decisions, one day our children aren't going to have us. We're not going to be there. And they're going to have to make decisions without us. So right now, I know you and Betsy, just like Amy and I, we've put this big hedge of protection around our children, right? And we're making sure that we're grounding them in God's Word, and we're trying to prepare them for the future. And one of the things that I have to constantly remind myself is that they're not going to have me one day. So you talked about what friends to choose, what to watch, who to marry, what to believe, right? How do you handle finances? How are they going to know how to do those things? How are they going to know how to make decisions if I've made all the decisions for them? And that hedge of protection is all about removing choices and removing decisions for them to make sure that they're making the right one. So I think as parents, our task is to realize that in that moment when our children do not have us anymore, they're not going to have our control, but they will have our training. And if we equip them now and we control and put a hedge of protection around them throughout their life, from toddler all the way to early adulthood, we put choices, we put decisions in front of them, we allow them to choose, we instruct them, we train them, we coach them, right? We let them feel the weight of the responsibility. Then they're going to adult better. When they turn 18, they go off to college, or maybe they go to vocational school, maybe they get a job, their first job, and they start moving in with somebody, with roommates, or they get their own apartment. Now we're not there every moment. And one day we're not going to be there at all. And are we equipping them in order to be a success? And before we talk about decisions, I think we ought to talk about identity. You know, just before we started recording, we talked about that a little bit. Children make decisions based on who they believe they are. It's not just children, it's everybody. I make decisions based upon who I think that I am. And this is the reason that we really started Grounded in the first place, right? With a worldview discussion. We started with what's a Christian worldview, and having that perspective, having that lens that we see the world based on the Bible, it impacts us greatly in our decision making. And we must ground our children in God's Word. They don't know God's Word. They don't know God's truth unless we share it with them. And over time, they're going to develop their identity, and we need to help them. Luke 2:52 says, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man." This is what we want for our children, right? To grow in wisdom and favor. And many parents, I do this all the time. I jump straight to behavior. But wisdom really grows from identity, not behavior. And children who know that they belong to God and that their choices matter, I believe those children are going to make better decisions. So how do we do that? How do we build identity as soon as possible? I'm really good at correcting behavior. Now my girls might say differently, but I think I'm really good at correcting behavior.
Don't we all, huh?
But building identity, it's something completely different. And children believe what's repeated to them all the time.
Yeah. You become what you say or what you hear.
What you hear, right? Over and over and over and over again. And my kids struggle with some of the basic chores. They struggle with chores. They don't have a lot of chores. So Amy has given Ashley and Erica every week, usually on Saturday. My point to them is, you don't wait till Saturday, do it through the week. But she's given them certain activities. And we don't pay for these activities. We do have some chores outside of the home that we're paying our oldest daughter for. But at home, we're living there. We all dirty clothes up. We all use the same toilets, right? We all use the kitchen. We all have clutter everywhere if we don't pick up after ourselves. Oh. So those basic chores we don't pay for. But the girls, they struggle with them. Things like washing the dishes, right? Or cleaning the restrooms. We got 3 bathrooms in our house, and Ashley has her own. Erica really has her own. Our kids are really blessed, honestly. Mm-hmm. And then there's one in the master suite, and then there's another one. So I guess we've got 3.5 baths now that I talk through it. But that's one of the chores that the girls have, is to clean the toilets. And her mother has certain standards to meet. And this would really take 40 minutes to do all 4 of these. 40 minutes, maybe even less if you and I were doing it. And it takes them 10 hours just to do that one task on Saturday. So why do I say that? Because I'm really good at correcting behavior. So, when I'm like, girls, you bunch of lazy, you just a bunch of lazy girls. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get off of your hind end. Right? I mean, get off of the phone. Why are you on the phone? We just had this conversation. I'm going to take the phone. So the phone's mine now for 3 days. And all this stuff. And then they go in. It still takes them 10 hours to clean the toilets.
Sounds like my house.
Yeah. So I think I'm good at talking about the behavior. But what I'm not really good at is understanding the identity, because in the heat of the moment, I'm pretty busy. I get frustrated. I call them lazy. So if I constantly call them lazy, guess what they're going to think that they are? And guess how they're going to act? They're going to act just like this. So maybe I should anchor my correction and identity first, and then the correction second. This is not indicative of how you are as a person. You are not lazy. Why are you piddling when you yourself want to do activity A, B, and C with your friends? You're not going to do it until the toilets are clean, right? I mean, your mother and I aren't going to do all the housework all the time. You have to help out because you live here, and try to create a foundation of identity, the identity that we want, the identity that we're supposed to have, and then the correction after that. Does any of that make any sense to you, or you think I'm crazy?
No, yeah. I mean, I just, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, like, how do we tie that back to identity in Christ, right? Like, how do we tie, right? Because we're talking about our worldview, our identity, like, even the chores and just looking at that. And some people might say, oh, you're being super spiritual, but I mean, everything we should do should be pointed back to the Lord. But as we look at, Scripture does tell us not to be lazy, not to be a sloth, not to be to work. Like, we're created to work and to do, and so like building that character, building their decision. Part of the decision making is, hey, if you spend the time now to do this with super laser focus, you're going to have time to do more later. You're going to have time for X. So. Yes, I mean, so as we talk about, it starts with identity before decisions. Like, what does that look like? Like, how do we embed that? How do we wrap back around to that? Even just talking about chores, like what you're talking about.
Well, our youngest, Amy, was inspecting some work. She's supposed to clean her room. She was inspecting the work, and I told Eric, I said, you know where your mother's going to look, right? Erica said, yeah, she's going to look under the bed. I said, not just under the bed. She is. She's going to look under the bed, and then she's going to look beside the bed in that corner where you got your hamper that you like to throw things behind the hamper when you're cleaning it up because you can't see it.
Yeah.
So she's going to look there. She's also going to open the closet, right? So what did she tell you to do? So she started outlining what she told me to do. She told me to put my toys away, make my bed. I said, so you also know you need to dust, right? She didn't say dust, but your mother's told you when you clean your room, you also dust. So there's a lot of dust over here because we haven't done it in a few weeks. She's going to say something about it. And then I'll walk away. 6 hours later, Amy's fussing because she hasn't cleaned her room. 8 hours later, she's got it clean. Amy's doing an inspection. And where did she look? Those 3 places. What did she find? Things that she didn't like. And she also found some clothes that somebody had taken a pair of scissors to.
That's funny.
And that did not go over very well.
Yeah.
So the question was, why did you cut this shirt up? I didn't, Mom. And the response is, you lied. You're just a little liar. Okay, that's correction, right? I mean, because we didn't cut up her shirt. Her sister is a teenager. I'm pretty sure her sister's not even in her bedroom unless she's picking on her for some reason. Most likely didn't cut up her shirt. Erica did it, right? And she did. She lied about it. She just outright lied about it. So how do we tackle that? Instead of just saying, you little liar, that's not true. Or even saying, you lied. Just root it in the identity first. Erica, you're an honest person. That choice it doesn't match who you are. Why are you lying? So now we've reminded Erica in that situation that you're not supposed to lie. You're not a liar, right? Your identity isn't made up of lies. Your identity needs to be rooted in Christ. You're an honest person. So why did you lie? Now we've got a discussion point to have with our children. Not that everything needs to be a discussion. Sometimes children think everything's a discussion.
Yeah.
In actuality, they need to not respond and just say yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, right? And then do the correction. But I think that's the suggestion at its simplest is name the identity desired, and then correct the behavior. And that way, our children don't just hear you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. They hear you're an honest person. Lying is wrong. Why did you do it? What are you going to do next time? Here's your consequence.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of times just as our kids do things and step into things, I have to constantly remind my kids like we should do everything as if we're doing it for the Lord. So even as you're cleaning, if you're cutting shortcuts, like let's just do it right the first time, because it's gonna because you don't do that, eventually you're gonna have to go back and do it the right way. And even in chores, as simple as dusting, cleaning your room, doing those kind of things. I mean, in life, if you take shortcuts, you're going to have to go back and fix those things. They're going to sneak up on you at some point. So if we can teach that through dusting, through cleaning, through telling the truth about something that you've messed up and shouldn't have done, cutting up clothes, right? My hope is that we can start having those discussions through these more trivial things, right? I mean, we could say that dusting, that's trivial, right? Like that's not going to impact their life. But if we can teach them how to do those small things well, then whenever they get to the bigger life decisions, they're going to realize, let's just do it right the first time.
Right. So we got identity behind us, and now we're talking about decision making, right? What you're saying is that we got to give them practice.
Yeah.
We got to let them make decisions. We've got to
and
control the stakes
and coach them through it, and always point them back towards your identity, right? Like what we're called to do and how we're called to do things, and we're going to mess it up. And to be able to coach them through those mess ups, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decision making, it's a skill. It's not a character trait. So it has to be taught. It just has to be taught. So when do we start teaching?
Yeah. I mean, it's you start young. I mean, it's from. I mean, as soon as they're born. I mean, we are teaching decision making, whether you think you are or not. And then you may be like, well, how do you do it with a kid? How do you do it, or with a baby, or with? But you really are. I mean, but it just looks different at each stage of life, right? Like I'm not. My youngest is 5 years old. Right? I'm not going to let her make a big major life decision. She's not going to get to decide where she goes to preschool because she doesn't get that option as a 5-year-old. Like, she doesn't understand it. But I know you've talked about your oldest as well, and like, there's some decisions she's making about some high school classes and some different things like that. So at each stage it looks different. As a 5-year-old, you may give them the option to, hey, are you going to wear this or are you going to wear that? What does this look like? And so you really need to start young because it builds. I believe that, and just seeing it, being a principal, being an educator, even just being in the church, just being in life in general, looking at my kids' friends and looking at my kids, it's super easy to make every decision for our kid. And then what they do whenever a decision comes up or it's time to make a choice, what do? They crane their head towards mom and dad and they're waiting on us to make the decision. And that's not reality. I'm not always going to be able to be there to say, yes, you can buy this, or no, you can't buy that, or yes, you need to do this, or yes, that friendship decision is a good decision. So you start young so that hopefully whenever you're not around, in elementary school and on the bus, in the neighborhood with friends, at church, whenever they're playing with kids at church camp, that they can start making sound decisions based on the training and you allowing them to make those decisions.
Yeah, Hebrews 5:14 says that solid food is for the mature, for those who have their own powers of discernment trained by constant practice, right? So our children aren't mature. They're not trained by constant practice. So we can't just throw them in the deep end to teach them how to swim because they're going to drown, right?
Yeah.
And I know some people will say, well, my father taught me how to swim, but I throw him into the deep end of the pool. I said, well, but he was standing right there to jump in and get you.
He's ready to help you if you need
right,
it.
So maybe that's a bad analogy, but your point is start early and start with the right way, because don't give them life-altering decisions when they're 2. But when they're 2, they can choose between 2 options, right?
Yeah.
So what am I going?
Yeah.
What do you want for lunch? Do you want a grilled cheese or do you want macaroni and cheese? They can choose that. Yeah. What would you like to wear to preschool or to church on Sunday?
Here's 2 outfits.
Do you want this dress, right, or do you want this outfit? And I say dress because I got 2 girls, but it doesn't matter the sex of them.
Girl households. And then as they get a little bit older, there's been times where my daughters have come down and they have sandals on, and mom's like, hey, listen, it's cold outside. I'm like, hey, let them go. Let them have cold feet and they'll figure out.
Unless it's minus 30,
yeah,
right?
Unless it's, no, if it's something, but really, like, there comes that place that every parent's been at where it's like, okay, I've hounded them about this clothing option and or other things, and it's like, you know what, at some point, you as a parent have to say, all right, this is something that they're going to have to feel.
Right.
And that mom and dad's really just trying to help direct you, but at some point, and Betsy can't stand it because it's like, no, we can't wear sandals. I'm like, let them wear it. Like, if they have cold feet today, as long as it's not -20, and that's small, but at some point you have to feel the consequences of your decisions, and that's positive or negative consequences.
Right.
You wear boots and it's snowing outside, guess what? Your feet are nice and toasty. You wear sandals and it's snowing outside, you'll be back in the house putting boots on. You wasted 30 minutes, you missed an activity, you missed something fun outside with friends. So at some point, we gotta let our kids, we gotta release them to make some decisions where we know, all right, they're gonna fail, but we're gonna be there to support them in the aftermath. And
Absolutely.
it's not gonna hurt they're not gonna die. Obviously steer away from those, but I believe it's super easy for us just to swoop in and be those helicopter parents.
Sure. I mean, I love it. The great progression. When you're 2 or 3, you got a choice to make. When you're 4 and 5, that choice, you start letting them not correct the choice. You start letting them realize that there's consequences. So they learn that there are decisions that have to be made, and there's cause and effect. There's a result of the decision that you make. And then when they get in early elementary school, I think it's a good opportunity to shift from guiding and supervising to coaching and reminding, right? Mm-hmm. You got to do your homework. I suggest you do your homework as soon as you get home and you're at your grandmother's house. That's where they get off the bus, our kids. Amy and I both work, and then by 5 o'clock they usually get picked up. So you should have your homework done by 5. But if you choose not to do that, then I'm going to come in, I'm going to say, do you have homework? No, I got it finished. Okay, show it to me, validate it, right? And when they say, no, I didn't do it. Well, you got to do it. Well, I'm having a conversation with my friend. Well, you got to get off the phone. You haven't done your homework. You didn't do it when you got home. That was your choice. You gotta live with it. So I think it goes from guiding and supervising to coaching and reminding when they're in elementary school. They can make their own decisions on when they do things sometimes, right? And live with those consequences. And then as they get to middle school, I think we can start shifting to observing and discussing. You're very good at that, is what I see from an outside looking in when we're having conversations, that you don't even have to wait to middle school for this, right? You notice a conversation that your children's having with their friends, and there's something in there that you want to talk about, so then you discuss it. And then you move to advising and questioning to make sure. So parenting, I believe, are steps that we should design to help our children learn to make choices on their own, so that by the time they're high school, they're making independent choices on work, on money, on priorities. Ashley, you mentioned her. She had an important decision recently. Where's she going to attend high school? And here in our county, we've got a lot of options. There's a lot of options. Well, the county charter school came to her middle school, and they gave a big sales pitch. And their sales pitch was, you're going to get the best education available in Catawba County. Oh, by the way, you're going to be able to get an associate's degree through this process. So you'll eliminate, at the very beginning, 2 years off of school, and you're going to save $50,000. And this really piqued Ashley's curiosity, because I've told her, honey, it really isn't a choice. You got to do something after high school. I mean, she doesn't have to go to college. She got to do some sort of vocational training. She got to do something, because you got to be better than average, or it's going to be very difficult just to live, right? So she's thinking about school. Kudos, that makes Dad feel proud, right?
Yeah.
How many 14-year-olds are really thinking about school beyond high school and their future? So proud dad moment. But don't let me chase too many rabbits. The whole point is that it piqued her curiosity. So she decided that's where she's going. I'm doing it. Like, well, wait. I respect your decision, but let's sit down and let's list out what's important to us. What's our requirements? So we did that. And then what do we know? What are all the different options? Let's do a little brainstorming activity. What are all the different options? And based on what we know, can we eliminate some of these options? We quickly got it down to 2. The charter school that she wants to attend, and the local high school that she's just part of the public school system that she's in. And we had weeded out some of the private school options just for us and our family. So now, what do we need to know in order to make the decision? We don't know we don't know everything, right? But we can find out more information. So we need to validate, don't we, that you're going to get an associate's degree. And we need to validate that associate's degree is really going to turn into 2 years of college. Because you want to be a vet. And a vet is a STEM degree. And STEM degrees, all college degrees, as you get into a university, you get into the college within the university, they have requirements. They're going to recognize your associate's degree, but that doesn't mean it's not going to take you 4 years to get your bachelor's degree, because those classes might transfer in to some extent, but they're not going to transfer into animal science because it's a general science associate. So maybe you get some humanities out of the way, maybe you get some beginning math classes out of the way, maybe it saves you 2 years. Maybe not, though. We need to figure that out. So let's go and ask questions. So that's what we did. We went to both places and we asked questions. We talked to both principals. We talked to teachers. Ashley asked the questions. Amy and I, we asked some other questions, and she came to the knowledge that she wasn't going to save $50,000 because she went to this school. As a matter of fact, she'd probably earn a semester or a year, maybe, going down this path, because she's going down a science path. And she also learned that there's some classes she's going to have to retake. She's already in Math 1. She's already she's making straight A's. She's going to take the test. It's a state class, as you know, with Math 1. It's mandated. You're going to do this. And she has to retake it if she goes down one path, and she doesn't have to retake it if she goes down the other. So at the end of it, Ashley, what's your decision? Well, based on the pros and cons that we listed and the validation that we did, I'm going to go to St. Stephen's. I'm not going to go to the charter school. Well, why not? Well, they didn't necessarily lie to me, Dad, but it wasn't the complete truth, because they didn't say I was going to have to retake some of my classes and that my choices were going to be more limited because of that. That they were really highlighting the big advantages that they do have so that they could sell it to me. But once I get into it, I don't think that's the right place for me. And I'm like, yay, yay, right?
Yeah.
She's made the choice. And
so y'all walked her through that process. And
we did.
You supported her.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I mean, she made the decision.
She made the choice.
And y'all guided her. It wasn't like, y'all weren't there and y'all just said, figure it out, let us know, we'll see you later. And you sat there and watched TV and ate your bonbons and waited until she came back, right?
And if she would have chose Challenger, we'd have supported that too.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations, you got in. She applied, she got in. That's awesome, right?
And some parents may be listening to this and saying, ain't no way I'd let my child make a decision on where they go to high school. But at some point, like, when is the point that we're going to be able to walk side by side with our kids to make big life decisions? I mean, it's going to be while they're under a roof. Once they leave and they're in college or living elsewhere, guess what? They no longer have to ask us. I mean, they don't. They're on their own. And so I think it's powerful. I believe we don't allow our kids to be part of that decision-making process. Ashley was a huge part of that decision-making process. And at the end of the day, there wasn't a right or wrong. Was there a better or best? Maybe. But at the end of the day, she's going to go to high school. She's going to graduate with a high school diploma. But how does that align with her goals further on in life? And how can you do more now so that you can step into that job situation where you can start, you can move more quickly into the workforce? And that's, y'all have prompted and prodded and prepared her to start making that decision. And how much more powerful, because say you made the decision that she was going to Challenger, she went there and she was miserable and she wasn't part of the decision-making process.
Right.
Well, Mom, Dad, you made me go here. Now, no, like, they need to have some skin in the game.
Right.
And I mean, at her age, what is she, 14? Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe we have 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds walking around that have never made a decision in their life. And maybe that's a little extreme. They've made some sort of decision. You can't get to that point. I mean, but no major decision. They've never been part of that process. And any kind of decision makes them clam up, quit, hunker down, and just do nothing.
And it's because they don't know how,
Yeah.
right? And we don't have to make it real complicated.
No, it's simple. It's simple.
Right. A youth leader of mine, this is like 37, 38 years ago, he told me, based on Proverbs 4:7, James 4:17, Philippians 2:4, that you can ask yourself 3 basic questions when you have a decision. You got a decision to make, you got choices. So when I ask 3 questions around the choices that you have: is it wise? Is it right? In other words, is it based on God's word? And is it helpful? Is it helpful to you? Is it helpful to others? If the answer is yes to all 3 of those, then it's an okay path. And if the answer is no to any one of those, then that choice that you have is probably not the right one. And then when you have multiple choices, Ashley had multiple choices. Was both wise? Yes. Was both right? There's nothing wrong with either school, honestly. Would both be helpful? Absolutely, right? So really she couldn't make a bad choice. Yeah. But you have to choose. And then you have to weigh your options, do your pros and cons, and choose. Yeah. And you have to have skin in the game. If you don't have skin in the game, then it means nothing. And you don't know how to make another decision like this in the future.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give an example. And once again, like, this is I ain't gonna say smaller, but it's Evelyn. We recently we came to the crossroads of, is she gonna keep playing softball? And I kind of came down, no more travel sports, travel softball. Because of just the time equity and all the different things. I won't get into all that, but I didn't tell her she couldn't play. I said, hey, but it's going to be rec or school ball. So spring season came around for rec ball. Hey, what do you want to sign up for? Dad, I don't want to play softball anymore. And I was like, why? Like, tell me why. Like, I'm fine with that, and that's fair, but explain your rationale. Well, just I want to focus on this. I want to do this. These are some of my goals, and I just don't think I want to play spring rec. I said, okay. I said, well, you do know if you don't practice and play, school ball tryouts come around in August, and you go try out, you're not going to be as sharp, and you may not make the team. She said, that's fair. Well, then she piped up about a month later and said, hey, I don't think I want to do softball anymore. That's not going to be my focus. And we talked about the whys and the whats, and I'm supporting her in it. There's not a wrong decision here, but if she's not happy with it or if she wants to focus on something else, I'm going to support her. But we talked through it. I told her the pros and cons. We had a real long, hard conversation about all of it, and she said, yeah, this is still the decision I want to make. And this is an 11-year-old making a decision about sports, and some people would roll over. I mean, no, my kid is playing basketball or softball because they put this time, but at the end of the day, like, I want her to be happy. And so, but even in that, like allowing her to make it and explain to her that these are the things that may be difficult later on if you choose to pick it back up.
There's results from your decision, right?
There are. So, but I love the piece, is it wise? Is it right? Is it helpful? I think those are three just basic questions that if any parent's like, all right, I don't know where to start. I think you start there. Right. And you start having conversations and you allow them to be part of that decision making, and you start young, and it's that gradual release. All right, in education we use that word a lot, but it's just gradually releasing so that whenever they hit 16, 17, 18, they're going to college, they're moving out, they're starting their career, that your children have a foundation for how to make decisions.
Yeah, protection without training produces dependence. So that simply means if we make all the decisions for our kids, it's going to produce dependence on us. And they're not going to be prepared for that, right? Yeah. And allowing small favors, listen at me, allowing small failures now, I mean, it's going to help prevent bigger failures in the future.
Yeah. And those failures are important.
Right.
Because without feeling those failures, you don't understand the weight of decisions.
That's right.
And there's a weight to it. So
whatever you sow, right? Galatians 6:7. Whatever one sows, that will he also reap. And our children need to understand that.
Yeah. No. I think it's super powerful.
Now you mentioned something just a second ago that got me thinking that I don't do very well. And I don't think you phrased it this way, but this is what popped into my head. It's I'm making decisions constantly. So why not incorporate your comment was incorporate our children into our decisions that we're making. Well, we can incorporate them in the family decisions, not just their own decisions that affect themselves, but decisions that affect the family. We can incorporate them into that, and we can talk out loud to let them know what process we're using to make choices, even if it's choices for ourselves. And that's I mean, isn't that the whole definition of training?
Yeah, no, I do think that sometimes we lack looping them in, and even simple things. I mean, we've been planning vacation and said, hey, listen, whenever we go out to eat for the next 6 months, we're going to all get water. Well, why are we all getting water? Well, because we want to go on this trip. And that's a small way for us to save money. I mean, but to talk through like your rationale, not just because I said so,
right?
But there's a why behind it typically. And I was a kid that always asked why. So, and my children ask why, and it gets on my nerves. But I always ask why. But if they know the why, and they know that it's a bigger part of the decision-making process, it's something that we're doing to better the family, to get ahead later on down the road, to be good stewards of our money. It's powerful. And then guess what? They'll hold you accountable better than you will yourself. Because I'll go out and be like, hey, I want to get a tea. Dad, didn't you say this month, the next couple months we're getting water? What are you doing? And then they can be part of it. But I mean, I'm serious. Like
it's good.
It's quality. Good. So yeah, include them in it. Don't always make it about their decisions, but show them what the family decisions are. Right?
So I'm taking something new out of this conversation, Charles. Just us going back and forth. I need to let our children hear my reasoning, so that everyday life becomes discipleship. That's good stuff.
No, it's powerful, and we all could do better with that. So. But I just say, I mean, decisions are important. Think about how you're training and coaching your kids up to make decisions? Are you wrapping them so much in bubble wrap that they can't do anything? And what's the impact that's going to have later on down the road? And so what does that look like for you? Reflect on that. We're all at different places with this. We're not perfect with it. We're still learning and growing. And if you have ideas, feel free to share them in the comment section.
Yeah, my goal isn't even perfect children. My goal is wise adults as a parent, right? And I need all the input that I can get from our listeners, because I don't have all the right answers. But I know one thing. One day they're going to make decisions without us. And the question isn't, did they obey when we were watching, right? And that's what correction does. The question really is, did we train them to choose when we're not there, when we're gone?
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, Charles.
Good stuff. Thanks, Mark.